Welcome to this service of shadows. This is an evening to remember. We remember the Passover Jesus shared with his disciples. We remember his new covenant of bread and cup. We remember the new commandment he gave, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. We remember his night alone in the garden in prayer. We remember the betrayal, his arrest, his trial, his suffering, and his death. We remember this night and thank God for Jesus' presence now. Please pray with me. You, Lord, are always with us. Though we are surrounded by shadows, we do not fear, because you go before us into the dark. Just as you created light out of nothing, turn the darkness of this week into light, a light that makes plain who we are and what we have done, a light that shows us how we are to live in the world, and a light that darkness cannot overwhelm. Amen.
My song is love unknown, my Savior's love to me, love to the loveless shone that they might lovely be. Oh, who am I that for my sake my Lord should take frail flesh and die? He came from heaven's throne, salvation to bestow. The world that was his own would not its Savior know. But oh, my friend indeed, who at my need his life did spend. Sometimes we strew his way, and his sweet praises sing, resounding all the day hosannas to our King. Then crucifying is all our breath, and for his death we thirst and cry. Unheeding we will have our dear Lord made a way, a murderer to save, the Prince of life to slay. Yet steadfast he to suffering goes, that he his foes from thence might free. Here might I stay and sing no story so divine. Never was loved a king, never was grief like thine. This is my friend, in whose sweet praise I all my days would gladly spend.
The shadow of betrayal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him one after another, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to the one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so."
Sharing paschal bread and wine, as the daylight ebbs away, friends at table join to dine. One of them will soon betray. Shadows lengthen into night. In a grove of olive trees, underneath the darkening sky, Jesus warns as he foresees. Peter also will deny. Shadows lengthen into night.
The shadow of desertion. When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all of the disciples.
When Jesus wept the falling tear, in mercy flowed beyond all bound. When Jesus groaned a trembling fear, seized all the guilty world around. When Jesus wept the falling tear, when Jesus wept the falling tear, in mercy flowed beyond all bound. When Jesus groaned a trembling fear, seized all the guilty world around. When Jesus wept the falling tear, in mercy flowed beyond bound. When Jesus groaned a trembling fear, seized all the guilty world around.
The shadow of weakness. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John, and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." He came and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a third time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough, the hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
the shadow of humiliation. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus, so that they might put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days.'" The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us, if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" And they answered, "He deserves death." Then he spat in his face and struck him. And some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who is it that struck you?"
Salvation.
night is every.
The shadow of denial. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you are talking about." When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
Rejected and despised by men and women of the race, he bears transgressions, wounding weight, and anguish mars his face. This man of sorrows, born to loss, acquainted with our grief, this Christ of God now crucified astonishes belief. In all the victims of our age, the battered and the bruised, Christ lives again, alike with them by human sin abused, ascending on a cross to die, descending into hell, in torment, suffering, scorn, and pain, we meet our God as well. Forgive us, Lord, as you forgave with your expiring breath the ones whose guilty hands, like ours, required a guiltless death. Oh, mystery of such costly love, oh, depth of grace revealed, in scourge-marked flesh we find our Christ, and by his stripes are healed.
The shadow of judgment. Then the assembly rose as a body and brought Jesus before Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, "We found this man perverting our nation, forbidding us to pay taxes to the emperor, and saying that he himself is the Messiah, the king." Then Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered, "You say so." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for an accusation against this man." But they were insistent and said, "He stirs up the people by teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee, where he began, even to this place." Then they all shouted out together, "Away with this fellow! Release Barabbas for us!" This was a man who had been put in prison for an insurrection that had taken place in the city and for murder. Pilate, wanting to release Jesus, addressed them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify, crucify him!" A third time he said to them, "Why? What evil has he done? I have found in him no ground for the sentence of death. I will therefore have him flogged and then release him." But they kept urgently demanding with loud shouts that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate gave his verdict that their demand should be granted. He released the man they asked for, the one who had been put in prison for insurrection and murder, and he handed Jesus over as they wished.
They crucified my Lord, and he never said a mumbling word. They crucified my Lord, and they never said a mumbling word. Not a word, not a word, not a word.
The shadow of the cross. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews."
The shadow of death. Now, when the centurion and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, "Truly, this was God's Son." Many women were also there, looking on from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee and had provided for him. Among them were Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mothers of the sons of Zebedee. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body of Jesus and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Marys were there, sitting opposite the tomb.
me to tread